Game pre-stream for Monster Monday. My name is DM Galabond, and as always, you are listening to the dulcet tones of Sirenscape. We're listening to our musicians playing for mead in the tavern, the Friendly Tavern. And behind the musicians, you can hear the sound of patrons murmuring as they're talking, the occasional mug or plate clinking, some laughter sometimes, and then every now and then somebody has a little bit too much to drink, and yep, it all happens right here. Sirenscape is my favorite ancillary app for desktop gaming. On a PC, it gives you all kinds of ambient sounds as well as great period music that you can use for exploration or battles or whatever. And whether you're running a tabletop RPG that's in the fantasy genre, in the sci-fi genre, or in the modern day genre, Sirenscape just has something for all of those situations. Alright, well, we are going to be live at the top of the hour, and tonight we're talking about Galazeth Prismari. Galazeth Prismari, who is one of the founder dragons in the Strixhaven Campaign. I have some thoughts on Galazeth itself, and then also some things that, well, they disappointed me a little bit with this one, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Welcome, chat. Sit back and relax for the next few minutes, and if you already have the Strixhaven campaign, be thinking about anything you may want to ask about Galazeth Prismari. Throw that in the chat during the show, because we have a section at the end where we will do Q&A. In the meantime, I'm going to get my monitors ready. I'm going to mute, have a little drink, and I'll be back to start the show momentarily. Alright, we have about a minute before we start the show. Welcome, viewers. Welcome, welcome. Hope everybody has had a good Monday. You know, there's only one thing about this tavern. We come in here every week and we tell them we're going to do a show, and they always set us right here by the stage where the musicians are playing. They're great musicians, I love it, but we need to come on over here by the fireplace. Yeah, come on over. Yeah, come over here. Yeah, we'll get into a little bit of a quieter corner of the inn, and we're going to go. Yeah, have a seat here. Have a seat. All right. Okay, everyone, welcome to Monster Monday. My name is DM Galabond, And tonight on Monster Monday, we are going to continue looking at the monsters out of the Strixhaven campaign. And for April 11th, 2022, we're looking at Galazeth Prismari, which is another one of the founding dragons that is supposedly a originator, founder of this university, the Strixhaven University. A few weeks ago, we looked at Beladros Witherbloom, and you can find that in the Monster Monday archives over on the YouTube channel. All right, well, just like Beladros Witherbloom, Galazeth Prismari originated in Magic the Gathering as a monster in the Strixhaven School of Mages expansion. And it's a 4 casting cost monster, a 3/4 monster. It's considered a legendary creature and an elder dragon. Now, I believe the rules, I haven't played Magic in a long time, but I believe the rules on Legends is that you can only have one in your deck. Not have one out on the table, but you can only have one in your deck. And you'll notice that with the mana, it requires at least 2 different colors of mana to cast. It requires blue mana and red mana. And in Magic the Gathering, those manas are all kind of thematically tied to some sort of energy, and we're going to see how they translated that when they brought the monster over to D&D. So in Magic, it has it's a flying creature, and when it enters the battlefield, you can create a treasure token, and then artifacts that you control have, when you tap them, you add 1 mana of any color, and you can spend this mana only to cast an instant or sorcery spell. Now, that's a very interesting line, and that's one of the things I think they, well, in my opinion, they kind of fell down a little bit on that, and I want to show you an example from another edition of D&D where I think maybe they might have done something a little bit more with Galazeth Prismari to capture more of this feel of something that has the ability to produce mana and cast spells with that mana. All right, and of course, one of the things I've always loved about Magic the Gathering is the artwork, and this card was painted by Raymond Swanland. All right, now, this is an image of Galazeth Prismari out of the Strixhaven sourcebook in D&D, and as you'll notice, yes, it's exactly the same image, and I don't even know that the colors are changed. I think it might just be the image that I found online of this card, where it might make the colors in the card look slightly more vibrant than the colors that they put in the source book. But it's the same image, same artist, same capture of the of Galazeth Prismari in flight. And in the campaign, Galazeth Prismari is listed as one of the 5 founding dragons of Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos. However, it does not appear anywhere in the campaign. So we don't get any clues about the monster from any sort of context where it appears. Also, from my review of the official fiction in the Strixhaven side from Magic the Gathering, I didn't see any references to Galazeth Prismari there. When we talked about Beladros Witherbloom, that dragon does appear in some of the official fiction that was released along with the launch of the Strixhaven School for Mages expansion, but I did not find the same thing for Galazeth Prismari. All right. So, a description of the monster as we find it in the D&D sourcebook. The dragon Galazeth Prismari embodies the flow of magic from inspiration into artistic expression, whether through physical form or another sensory medium. His magic draws on primal energy such as flame, lightning, and the tides, and weaves them into spectacles both beautiful and deadly. So, art, of course, uh, there's art for all the senses. There's music for your ears. There's performance art and painting and sculpture for the eyes. There is tactile art that is meant to be touched and felt and experienced in that way. And there are culinary arts. There is food, and there are other kinds of aromas that are used in an artistic way to appeal to both the sense of smell and the sense of taste. So, art for all of the senses, and that's just sort of what the Prismari College embodies, and then Galazeth Prismari, as the founder of that college, sort of embodies all of that as well within himself. All right, and then we find out a little bit of lore when the monster is given its stat block in the campaign. And it says that Galazeth founded Prismari College to ensure that the study of magic would not ever be relegated to pure practicality. His teachings emphasize that magic's beauty must contribute to unfolding culture and personal emotional growth. Galazeth views dynamic expression and precise perfection as necessary competing forces both within individuals and the world at large. And I think, in our modern day, the most easily accessible understanding of that balance between precision and dynamic creativity is in music. It's what most of us are familiar with in terms of art forms, and if you think about it, you know that all musical tones are made by the vibrations of instruments, and vibrating at a certain frequency that dictates what tone they what musical note they produce. And yet, there's no argument that when you hear a virtuoso, whether they're playing the flute, whether they're playing the guitar, whether they're playing the piano, whatever it is they're playing, the emotion that comes through is not anything from from those tones. It's sort of the feeling and the way that the artist is pouring that creativity, and yet there's an incredible precision, because if you hit one note wrong, it's going to make it sound sour. And then a lot of times there will be intentional dissonance in music that will lead to a certain feeling until the music resolves and gives you then that sort of that release. So you can build the tension in music with that dissonance and then release it with that sort of resolution and harmonic those harmonic chords and everything. So if you think of magic in that same way, that's sort of what Galazeth Prismari is all about, and what the Prismari College tries to teach its students at Strixhaven University. All right, and when, of course, they bring monsters over to D&D, every monster has to have a type in D&D, and Galazeth Prismari is, of course, a dragon. So dragons are large reptilian creatures of ancient origin and tremendous power. True dragons, including the good metallic and the evil chromatic, are highly intelligent and have innate magic. Also in this category are creatures distantly related to true dragons, but less powerful, less intelligent, less magical, such as wyverns and pseudo-dragons. Alright, now we're going to take a look at two different dragons. We're going to start by looking at Galazeth Prismari in the we're gonna start by looking at Galazeth Prismari in here. Okay, there we go. In the source book from Strixhaven Curriculum of Chaos, And then we're going to look at a dragon from an older era because of something that they decided to do in the tags when they brought him over. So Galazeth Prismari, you notice here, he is a gargantuan dragon, and the subtag here is sorcerer. So that means that they decided to give him a class. They also gave him an alignment, which is chaotic neutral. So he's armor class 21, 402 hit points, movement speed of 40 feet, flying speed of 80 feet. Pretty impressive stat block, as you would imagine for an elder dragon, with kind of the his dump stat, if you will, being dexterity at 14. And dexterity is pretty good for dragons. I mean, a lot of dragons are bumping around with a 10 or 11 dexterity. So he's resistant to lightning, and he's immune to cold and fire. And he speaks Common or Draconic, has a bunch of pumped up skills and saving throws, CR 23, and of course, as an ancient dragon, I guess he would be an adult or an ancient. As a gargantuan, most dragons that are gargantuan are either adults or ancient. You have the legendary resistance. You also have legendary actions, which we'll talk about. Then his normal actions are his multi-attack. He makes 1 bite and 2 claw attacks. He also has a breath weapon, and this is a dancing elements breath weapon. And notice he exhales a blast of flame and ice in a 90-foot cone. So DC 22, and you take 7d10 fire and 7d10 cold on a failed save. So his breath weapon is a mixture of both fire and cold damage. And you remember back to Magic the Gathering, you had to cast him using blue mana and red mana. And in Magic, one of the energies for blue is cold or ice, and the primary energy source for red is always fire. So that's kind of a nod back to his origins in Magic the Gathering. Now this is the place where I think he actually kind of feels a little bit underpowered for what I think he should be. And that's in his spellcasting. You know, they say he's a sorcerer, and you think he's a 23 hit die sorcerer. So you'd think he's probably got quite a bit of sorcerer magic up his sleeve. But no, he's got only 3 spells and he can cast them only once a day. Control Water, Gust of Wind, Wall of Stone. Yeah, Wall of Stone is a pretty high level spell, but come on. It's only got 3 spell slots for the whole day. It seems a little weak sauce to me. So, we're going to talk about reskinning. We're going to talk about how you can get inspired by some earlier editions of D&D when you're reskinning a dragon that is supposed to have like a casting class built into him. And then you have legendary actions. So 3 legendary actions. And remember, legendary resistance is the ability to succeed on a saving throw when you fail. And the dragons get 3 legendary resistance every day. The legendary action is the ability to take an action at the end of another creature's turn during combat, and on legendary actions, they get 3 of those every round. So those legendary actions recharge every round during combat. The legendary resistances do not recharge during combat, so keep that in mind when you're fighting against a legendary creature or when you are running a legendary creature as a DM. So one of the actions is a claw attack. Another action is this lightning flash, which is kind of cool. Moves up to half his flying speed without provoking opportunity attacks, and anytime he passes within 15 feet of a creature during that move, The creature must succeed on a DC 22 Dex save or take 2d10 lightning damage. And a creature can take this damage no more than once during the move. So that means that he can do, as one of his legendary actions, just fly 40 feet across the battlefield, and every time he comes within 15 feet of somebody, it forces them to make a save or they take lightning damage. So that's kind of an interesting thing that you can do with his legendary actions. Then there's Flowing Creation, which uses all three of his actions, and he magically summons 1d4 art elemental mascots. We already talked about mascots, and you can go back into the archive on YouTube and see that video that we did. We talked about the school mascots. And those appear in unoccupied spaces he can see within 60 feet. They obey his commands and take their turns immediately after his. Any creature other than an art elemental takes 1d10 cold, fire, or lightning damage as Galazeth's choice if it ends its turn within 5 feet of one or more of those elementals. And when one of those elementals drops to 0 hit points, Galazeth can fly up to 20 feet without provoking opportunity attacks. So you may think, well, art elementals, those are really weak creatures, and they're probably going to get killed very easily. Yes, they will, but every time one of them gets killed, he gets free movement. So when you're considering whether or not you're going to use that as one of his legendary actions during combat, think about, okay, when would it be nice to have several different additional movement options during the round? And that might be the time that he would deploy the Flowing Creation. And then every time one of those goes away, he gets a free 20 feet of movement anywhere he wants to go, and it doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. So that can be kind of a cool thing. So that is Galazeth Prismari. Now, like I said, everything here is pretty cool about that, except I'm kind of disappointed about the spellcasting. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the 3.5 edition Monster Manual, and we are going to look at the Adult Green Dragon. Now, why the Adult Green Dragon? Because the Adult Green Dragon, all adult dragons in 3.5 are spellcasters. And they are all casters of a certain class and of a certain level. And as an adult green dragon, he casts spells as a 5th level sorcerer. And so they give him a full load of 5th level of spells like a 5th level caster would have. So he's got 6 cantrips, 7 first level spells, and 5 second level spells. And spell save DC 13 based on the formula they used in 3.5. And here's the entire list of spells that they have. Now, you'll recall that when we've looked at some named humanoid spellcasters in Monster Monday, if that humanoid is a, cast spells as a, 21st level cleric or whatever, they have a full complement of all the spells that they would normally have as a 21st level spellcaster. Well, this is a founding dragon. Why not give the dragon that same kind of extra spells? I know. Then it would no longer be a CR23 monster. It would be a much more powerful monster. But this is supposed to be a legendary creature. So why not let it be a much more powerful monster? That also means that by giving it a full spell load, that goes back and harkens back to the ability that the card has, where it can cause your other artifacts to generate mana, and you can use that mana to cast additional spells during your turn when you have Galazeth Prismari on the playing field in a game of Magic the Gathering. So I feel like it kind of would be a better homage to the origins of the creature if you gave it a more full complement of spells based on what level of sorcerer it's supposed to be. So, you may agree, you may disagree, but that's kind of what I think. Alright, so we are going to go back to the slides here, and we're going to continue looking at Galazeth and talk about Galazeth in encounters. Alright, we always talk about how you can create a hard encounter for your party using your using these creatures in your game. And whoops, okay, where did I go? Here I went. And with Galazeth Prismari, he is a CR23 monster, and that means if you have a party of 5 PCs that are level 19 or 20, it's a hard encounter. And right now, they haven't really released a whole lot of content in D&D 5e for levels beyond 20. There's a lot of homebrew things out there for taking your game beyond level 20. But right now, everything officially that has been released by Wizards of the Coast all kind of caps out at level 20 for you. So level 19 or 20, it's a hard encounter. If you throw this guy at a party that's under level 19, it's going to be a deadly encounter for them. So we don't even talk about anything else. Now, theoretically, if you are going into what might be considered epic levels in 5e, where you're taking your campaign beyond level 20, then you might need to add other monsters to the encounter to make it a challenge if you have a party that's like, say, level 22, 23, whatever. Alright, now if you are a player and your DM throws Galazeth Prismari at you, what are some of the things you want to think about? Well, first of all, you want to look around and hope that Shaq is somewhere nearby, because you're going to need some of that icy hot. He's pitchman for the icy hot all the time, because Prismari's dragon breath deals both fire and cold damage. So you're going to need something to soothe both the burns and the frostbite. Then you're going to have to watch out for lightning. So Galazeth Prismari can attack with lightning as one of his legendary actions. When he moves around the board, if he gets close to you, boom, you're going to get zapped with lightning. There's trouble with mascots. Galazeth Prismari, he is such a fan of his college that he brings his own cheerleaders, or at least his own mascots, along with him. So he can summon and control several of the art elemental mascots, and he can deploy those to deal ongoing damage around the battlefield. And then beware of magic. Galazeth Prismari is a sorcerer and has several spells he can cast, although, as we just discussed, I don't think he has enough for what he should. And then last but not least, remember he's a legendary foe. So he has both legendary actions, which recharge every round, and means he can take those actions at the end of other creatures' turns. And he has legendary resistances, 3 of those every day. Alright. And if you are behind the screen and you want to throw Galazeth Prismari at your players. So if you're running a heroic campaign, meaning that your PCs, they all are heroes in the traditional sense, it would be very unlikely to find the PCs having to battle one of the founding dragons unless something had corrupted the founding dragon. But however, in a homebrew campaign, if you're using Galazeth Prismari as an antagonist for the party, a good opener might be the fire, or might be the breath weapon, dealing both fire and cold at the same time, and then make use of the lightning flash on each round as one of the legendary actions, unless it makes more sense to summon the mascots and use that to get some of that extra movement. Then finally remember that Galazeth spells are situational. So the flowing creation ability could be used to add a splash of annoyance damage, especially against casters that are holding concentration spells. Of course, use the breath weapon anytime it recharges and attack with claws and bite whenever you are able to do so. And where would you put Galazeth Prismari in a campaign? Well, as a CR23 monster, he's most likely going to be someone that a high-level party might seek out for guidance or wisdom when researching an issue of magic that touches on his special domain of the magic of performance, or the magic of performance art. Now, in a homebrew setting, Galazeth Prismari might be the leader of a faction that acts similar to the Harpers on the Sword Coast. Now, because he's chaotic neutral, that faction could be a good aligned faction, or a evil aligned faction, or it could just be a faction of chaos that opposes like too much order and too much rigidness. And it really then would depend whether you want to see that organization as allies of your PCs or as antagonists against your PCs. And then that may be determined by whether your PCs are all heroic PCs or whether they are an anti-hero adventuring group. So maybe an evil aligned group that's out to oppose the civilized peoples of the world. Alright, and now, last but not least, we come to reskinning. So, reskinning Galazeth Prismari, well, first of all, you can go with the simplest of all, which is to simply change his breath weapon energy types. So because his mana colors from Magic the Gathering, he has both cold and fire in his breath weapon. So you could change him to use any of the 2 dragon breath weapon types if you wanted to do a simple reskin. So instead of fire and cold, he might do acid and lightning, or he might do poison and necrotic, or he might do radiant and something else, whatever. So you could change that around and have those, change his breath weapon. And then also that 3rd damage type with the lightning flash, well, you could change that to something else. It might become a fire flash. So if his breath weapon is part lightning, part poison, let's say, then maybe when he moves around, instead of a lightning flash, it might be fiery flash. And when he passes within 15 feet, people make saving throws or they take fire damage. So in some of these Founder Dragons that have class designation, like I said, we already talked about my disappointment with the limited spells. And we looked at 3.5 edition as kind of a template where you might decide, okay, what level spellcaster am I going to make him? And then how many spells at each level, counting cantrips, would a spellcaster with his stat block have at that level? And go ahead and throw those in there. So that's another way you could reskin Galazeth Prismari, is by just simply making him a more formidable sorcerer spellcaster. All right, and that is going to take us to the Q&A portion. So I'm going to look over here on the one chat and see if I see any questions. And then I'm going to look over here on the other chat and see if I see any questions. Okay, so far I do not. If you do have questions, you can go ahead and throw those in the chat, and I will look at those after I do the sort of the announcements and wrap up and everything. I'll come back. All right, so thank you all for joining us tonight for Monster Monday. I've been DM Galabond, And this has been Monster Monday with Galazeth Prismari. If you have been watching this far, please go ahead and subscribe or follow if you're over on Twitch, and subscribe to the channel if you're over on YouTube. Like the stream, share the stream, click the post notification bell so you know every time we go live and every time we post new videos. I have 4 streams that I do most weeks. 2 of those streams are not going to be happening this week because I have conflicts, unfortunately. So the Walker of Waterdeep is our Sunday stream, and because of just timing of different events, well, yesterday was our last show until May. We are not going to be back with that show until May, so we've got like 3 or 4 Sundays off. Next Sunday is Easter. We have several people that have conflicts with Easter. Then there's a Sunday game for the team that I have season tickets for, so we're not going to play that week. Then I'm on vacation because a cousin's son is getting married, so I'm going to be out of state and traveling, and I won't be able to run the game. And then finally we come back in May. I think it's the I forget when the first Sunday in May is, whether it's right at the beginning of the month or whether it's like the 8th of the month. We'll be back for Walker of Waterdeep. Sword Coast Chronicles used to be on Thursday night, but we've just shifted it over to Wednesday night because that works better for some of our players who have had recent changes in jobs and or changes in schedules at work. So we are now playing Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Saturday night, we have one more Saturday off because I have a conflict this weekend. That same sports team has a home match this Saturday night, so I won't be able to run that. And then we will be back with that on Saturday the 23rd. Okay, Amish, thank you. I'm glad that will give you a chance to catch up. We stream over on twitch.tv/Galabond. All of our archives are over on YouTube and the Patreon. You can go over there to the Patreon if you want to help us create even more content. We would love to see you over there. And next week we are going to be back, and we are going to be looking at a monster called the Groff, which is again from the Strixhaven Curriculum of Chaos. All right. Okay. So yeah, Amish, we're getting close to finishing that. So you have a few shows to catch up on. So that hopefully you'll enjoy that. All right. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out tonight. I don't see any other questions, so I am going to go over and look to see if anybody is streaming some D&D tonight. If they are, we will go ahead and we will raid them. So let's take a look here. And let's take a look here. And it looks like, okay, Spike the Dark. Looks like Spike the Dark is running some D&D, so we'll go ahead and we'll raid them. That'll do it, Amish. New game. You get sucked into that for a while, and then, yep. Well, that's the nice thing. That's why we always have it over on YouTube, is so you can catch up. All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and we are going to raid Spike the Dark. And as always, I'll sign off by reminding you to watch out for the monster under the bed. Good night, everybody.